Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to uh, uh, sharing our ideas with you today. Michelle Van Noy and Kyle Alpert, who usually host this meeting, aren't here today. I'm Thomas Wieko, and I'll be your host today. And we have the good fortune of having with us today someone I've had the pleasure of working with in recent months, Hanim Saleh, who is a Fulbright scholar and a professor from the University Tenaga Nasional in Malaysia. She is someone who's been very much involved in her institution and at the national level in questions of quality assurance and credential innovation. And today she will be sharing some of her experience, both from Malaysia and some comparisons to the United States, about what works and what breaks, and how the integration of credentials to degrees is working in the Malaysian system. I'll share a few thoughts about that in the United States, and we'll open to discussion. So, with that, Hani, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the kind introduction, Tom. So good morning and good afternoon, everyone who are listening right now. So I'm going to talk on this topic, okay, before I go on, okay. This is the content of my presentation today, and Tom will also join me towards the end of this presentation. And let me start this talk by talking about the topic itself, which is credential to degree integration. What does it mean? Basically, I'm looking at how do you actually integrating industry and professional NDCs, or specifically micro-credentials, into degree learning pathways. So some of the implementations is also included with having micro-credentials that is being co-created by the university and the industry. So this is the scope of the study. And why do I want to look into ASEAN and Malaysia? Because I think ASEAN, it has similar challenges as the US in terms of harmonizing these practices. If I were to compare, just Malaysia is just one country, but the challenges with ASEAN means you have to look at the various types of practices. Quite similarly, maybe in the US. So that's why I include in the study looking at ASEAN as well. And we are also currently looking at this flexible learning and industry responsive curriculum, which is also now a regional and national priority. So that's hence the topic. And I've seen that the perception is in the US, we can see that there's a rapid digital micro-credential adoption. So that's why we think it's really something that we want to learn from and see whether there are pitfalls to avoid. And how do we see this credential to degree integration, which I'm going to explain later as well. We are looking through the 5 models, the embedded recognition of prior learning, articulation, stackable, and also work-based pathways. So I really think this topic is really an in thing or a trend now, looking at the Coursera survey 2025 report, talking about how the learners themselves really interested to take an academic program which actually embeds the micro-credentials. So same as maybe in my country, we do see the drop in the enrollment. So we need to find ways, most higher education looking ways to integrate these industrial certificates or credentials. All right, let me start with maybe an introduction of ASEAN and Malaysia. ASEAN stands for Association of Southeast Asian Nations, which consists of 11 countries. And Malaysia is one of it. I hope you can see my mouse here. So Malaysia is located here, just in case you don't know. And it is surrounded by Thailand, Singapore, and also Indonesia. So in ASEAN, all of these countries, they have their own national qualifications framework. This is normally the one that actually governs even how do you integrate the industry credentials into your qualification. It actually governs by this framework. So the way we do it in terms of, because all of them have their own qualifications framework. So in ASEAN, we have this what we call ASEAN qualifications reference framework. So for example, some countries, they have 9, like Malaysia, we have 8 levels. So these will be mapped to this reference so that we are clearly, we can clearly understand if you want to transfer from one country to the other, you can easily understand which level the students or the learners are. So this is what it meant by harmonizing national qualifications framework. So, and this is the overview of the skills of NDC, what happens throughout the ASEAN. If you look at this table in general, you can see maybe there is an uneven adoption of these NDCs, and I would say the integration is really slow. So that's why we want to see and compare with the US, how do you have it here in the US? So I'm just giving an example here, like Singapore, even here, the record show is also like from the media. So a lot of the data actually in the ASEAN, I mean, there are some adoption, but they are maybe at the institution or universities level, or they are actually at the ministry, but they are not publicly and open data for us to look at. But in general, there are trends there, but very limited public data. And among the one that is more visible, I would say like Malaysia has that initiatives of having it at the public database. Now we have more than 26,000 micro-credential courses. And most of these micro-credentials has to relate to industry. I mean, that's why we also include this definition in our study. And efforts now is really going through and in progress, what we call the credit banks. So that will be easier for like transfer credits you want to go across countries. And in Malaysia as well, we are starting to launch a new guideline on how to go about this national credit bank. And this is the aspiration at the ASEAN level as well. So we are looking into how we can not just integrate the industry certificates, but also moving towards cross borders and hopefully international. So I would say the ASEAN model is more like a European model as well. And how do you actually harmonizing like different practices throughout the country, and we do help each other in terms of sharing the best practices. This is Malaysia. So this is my country. So Malaysia has more than 36 million population, maybe slightly smaller than California. So Tom was saying it's like California. If you want to imagine is how small is Malaysia is. But we have more than 1 million students. I think it's, I would say like in the ASEAN countries, we are one of the big hub for education as well in the region. We have about 20 public universities, more than 300 private institutions. Under the Ministry of Higher Education, we also have polytechnics and community colleges. And my university, so you can read the logo here. Tom was asking what is Tenaga. Tenaga in our language is actually energy. So we already translated for you, Energy University. We are owned by a national public electricity company, which is the Naga National Berhad. So I guess in my case, I'm quite lucky because we are owned by an industry itself. So under the Naga National Berhad, they have more than 20 subsidiaries. So we can easily go from the industry perspective. It's just, as I said, maybe the adoption is still low in terms of integrating into the curriculum. We don't have all our programs with industry certificate yet. Okay. It is also maybe good to see because we've talked about what works and what breaks. So we need to know when we say what works, in the context of ASEAN and Malaysia, we have this national quality or qualifications framework. And this is quite recent. In 2024, we already developed to incorporate this lifelong learning. So you can see in this framework, Malaysia has already specified how do you integrate the lifelong learning part into the various level. And in the sector as well, because you have like academic sector from the higher education themselves, and then you have another sector of the skill sectors, which are the technical and vocational education and training. So this is still considered formal, but they are under different on the skills competencies. So you can easily see and map, and there are requirements to get certain level of qualifications. You need to have these credits. So the one that we're talking about today is basically how do you integrate this part here, the lifelong learning, external micro credentials from industries, how do you integrate to this? So there is another framework that actually explain this. All the higher education institutions are really clear how to go about it. So you can see this is the formal learning part. So this is what we call flexible lifelong learning framework. This is the formal part, and this is the non-formal and also informal. So in Malaysia, we are using the term accreditation of prior experiential learning because we do accredit these people. You cannot just have your own prior learning and go to an institution. It needs to be a verified institution. It's an accreditation. So that's what we call APEL. That's the short form, APEL. So there are 4 types, A, C, M, and Q. So A is for access, C is for credit transfer, maybe like specific courses or micro-credentials, also bigger level of micro-credentials like a course, and another one is specifically for micro-credentials. Q is also quite interesting, it's quite new, it's for qualifications. So for example, if you have 20 years or 30 years in your field, you can convert it to PhD, for example. So of course, there are requirements to it. You need to have a good portfolio and so on. So this is how basically Malaysia, so you can see is so prescribed and structured. But of course, there are, in a way, I see it, maybe that's the reason why the adoption is a bit slow, because people are very conscious about, okay, how do you actually accredit this one, or what is the portfolio, how do you prepare, and things like that. And also the people who's going to evaluate. In the Malaysian Qualifications Agency as well, they appoint centers that can do this, and they need to be trained for certain field. So if you are in that field, you don't have expert to evaluate your work, so that accreditation of prior learning will not be endorsed in a way. So it does take time, and that's why maybe our adoption is a little bit slower than maybe what I see over here. All right, so that's the reason why I talk about Malaysia, ASEAN, and US, because we want to understand if Malaysia, we have this public framework and also to create clear pathways, trust, and comparability, but maybe the adoption is a bit slower because they need to train people and so on for the accreditation, and also understand the guideline and so on. So in the United States, I can see that what I learned is highly decentralized and highly innovative. Rapid growth of badges and certificates and digital records. And From what I understand, the recognition of prior learning is often institution specific. So the portability may be uneven, but extensive NDC offerings by industry and professions. So from this, that's why we want to learn, this kind of energy. How do we actually adopt this in a faster rate than what we should have done? All right. So let us see what works and what breaks as well. I've been looking at a few case studies and some QA policies, and I found that these are maybe some overview of a framework. How do you actually integrate this credential to degree pathways? We have here 5 models. Model A is you have this embedded credential, is already inside the curriculum. Model B is you have this prior learning assessment, and then you convert it into credit. Model C is articulated pathway, means you have an agreement, and then you have a collective of these credit packets. Model D is stackable sequence. Maybe you design the micro credentials which can be stacked and converted into degree. And model E is on the apprenticeship or the work-based learning, where you actually learning while you're working. These models are there when I synthesize some of the case studies, but it's not mutually exclusive. That means each university can have combinations of everything. It can have. But normally the model E, I can see that the pattern is more towards maybe the community college. It can also combine, maybe model D and E in that community college. So it's not mutually exclusive. So it's a combination. So maybe this general framework can help people to understand how do you actually do this in a lot of settings. Even in Malaysia, maybe this is also quite similarly. We do have this, all of these, but in Malaysia, we don't really see this articulation agreement yet in terms of implementing the industry to the degree pathways. The current implementation maybe in Malaysia is more towards like credit transfer and also accreditation of prior learning. Okay. So this is the things that what works basically in terms of the key factors to consider. I'm also learning and looking at a lot of, there are playbooks, guidelines, standards available in the US, in ASEAN and Malaysia. I guess these are the main key factors that people need to consider when you are actually integrating these credentials into the degree pathways, mainly categorized as development and design, implementation and delivery, quality assurance and assessments. So these can also be something that all the institutions need to look at when they do this. So I'll go ahead and maybe look at this, what breaks as well. Based on the case studies, we found that there are 8 interdependent problem areas. However, for today's presentation, we're just going to focus on these 3 dominant and common breakpoints. The first one is in the support that the learners get. Normally, they feel that it's inadequate or complex navigation, and at the end, they will just drop the program. Number 2 is faculty. So, of course, a lot of things, it depends on the people, right? The learners and the faculty. So those are the 2 important points that you need to focus before we're going to start this. In terms of their capacity, in terms of if you get the credentials from the industries, maybe you need to update. And this can be something to look into. And also the weak outcome data and no continuous quality improvement. So I'll just stop there first. I want to give some time to Tom to continue his his slides on this to describe further. Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks, Hanin. So, what does this look like in the United States? I mean, we have, of course, the same kinds of problems for non-degree and non-credit learners. We may not have adequate support for them to kind of navigate the sort of learning pathways and integrate their qualifications into degree level studies. Or if the support's lacking in the areas of academic advising, could be financial support and other ways. One of the serious problems facing learners has to do with a variability and just how local a lot of the recognition of prior learning practices are, and how that makes pathways difficult to predict and read. They're not transparent and clear. Haneem, if you jump ahead to the next slide,
Okay.
I want to make a point, which is that for learners in the United States, there's been a lot of work that's being devoted now to the development of portals and platforms that allow learners to see in ways that are very predictable and clear how credit-based learning functions in degree programs and how that's going to be recognized as they move from one institution to another. This is actually a really terrific model from the state of California, which is the course transfer and articulation arrangements for California colleges and universities. It's a wonderful resource. The question is, what does it not include? And the answer is, it doesn't include non-credit study. It doesn't include the professional and industry certifications that people have acquired. You don't you don't see here, right, how those are going to count and how those can be embedded in a degree program of study. Could you go back to the previous slide?
Okay.
So, so it's a less readable and predictable system if you're a non-credit or a non-degree learner and trying to figure out what's going to happen to that. Obviously, as Haneem said, the other key piece is the faculty. And having professional and industry-focused learning has a really shorter half-life than does degree-based study. In the United States, you may not have a formal program review apart from a 7 to 10 year period because you're in that accreditation cycle. But that's not the case, right? For non-degree credentials. If you're trying to respond to the skill needs of professions and industry in the world of practice, you're going to need a much faster cycle of review, and you're going to need to evaluate whether that aligns to the external skill demands of professions and industry. And I know from my own experience, having taught in a university, I had no idea whether I did not have good information about the fit between the learning we were providing and the skill needs external to my institution. And another sort of impediment to the sort of efficient integration of professional and industry-based learning into degree study has to do with the data systems of institutions and the data systems of governments. There is a weak data infrastructure for non-degree and professionally focused learning in higher education institutions. Again, if you would jump ahead, I'll show a slide. I think it's Haneem. Next slide. Oh, there we go. 2 years ago, I guess, with the assistance of UPSIA, we asked members of their Credential Innovation Advisory Board about the status of non-credit and non-degree learner data within their institutions. And as you can see here, I think we had 42 responses. And the predominant sort of response was, where do you keep that information? And the answer is, it's not stored centrally in our student information system as credit-based degree-oriented learning is, right? Now, that's changing, but it's not that way today, right? And one of the consequences of that is that, of course, there's a poor then linkage between that learning and the external, the ability to document that in public data systems. If you will go ahead to the next slide. So I think it's fair to point out in the United States that there are plenty of breakpoints that that limit the incorporation of particularly professionally and industry focused learning into degree programs. But things are changing, and they're changing not because of the things that the national government is doing. The United States has the characteristic of a system in which really the drivers of change are states, nonprofits, think tanks, research organizations, professional societies, and foundations who are funding this work. And they're the ones who are really driving the change. And there are a couple interesting examples where you can see there are efforts underway to bring greater clarity to learners and, for that matter, employers about the nature of non-degree credentialing. For example, if just jump ahead one slide, I think it is. One more slide. There we go. All right. There is a proposal under the work has just gotten recently started to build a nutrition label for credentials. And if you can look at this list of organizations here, you can see that is, as I said, you've got professional societies, you've got research bodies, you've got the Peak Association of Higher Education, you have foundation funding, and this work is to help create a system that is more readable, predictable, and transparent. And the idea is to build a standard way of talking about credentials so that can support learners and employers and educators. Can we go back one, retreat one slide? Go, yeah, there we go.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So there are really voluntary cooperative efforts underway to build at scale greater clarity about this. There are a lot of efforts underway to support the capacity of educators to evaluate and assure the quality of non-degree learning. A lot of that is supported by the emergent services offered by accreditors outside of their traditional role in accreditation. But as a fee-for-service provider of recognition of non-degree learning, and that's also being joined by professional bodies. And if you jump ahead 2 slides, Haneem, this is not a great. No, 3 slides. I'm sorry. One more slide. I think there's one more. I think there's one more slide. There we go. So there are really important efforts underway that are helping to kind of get at the problem of it can be a burden to sort of stay on top of and make sure that the learning being offered in professional industry-focused learning is relevant to emerging skill demands and at an acceptable level of quality, that it should be embedded into study programs. And we have organizations like on the left panel here, we can see that's ABET, which used to be known as it's the principal representative of the accreditation body for engineering and technology that is engaged in a credential evaluation activities. On the right-hand panel, we can see IEEE, which is the electrical engineering body, is engaged in helping to review and recognize non-degree learning. And just today, I was reading about the work of the Higher Learning, HLC, Higher Learning Commission, and it has begun its first round of recognition of non-degree credentials, or endorsement of non-degree credentials. They will require re-endorsement on a 2-year cycle, but they've begun that with their first 4 providers of micro-credential learning, and they intend to expand that, creating then a sort of a way for institutions to have assurance and to more easily work towards embedding this learning into their degree-based study. So if we can go back up one last time, sorry, this is not great sequencing. The other thing that's happening is there's important work taking place inside of institutions. There's a great push today And this is really being done by the major educational technology firms to help higher education institutions build integrated data systems that are keeping track of all sort of varieties of learning offered by the institution. So that kind of gap between the continuing and professional side of the house and the academic side of the house is really, really swiftly being addressed. That's happening inside of the institutions, and outside of the institutions, there's some really important innovations taking place. And I'll be plugging my colleagues again at Rutgers University who have, and if you jump ahead, you can see it, the state, one more, there we go, who are working to develop a voluntary national taxonomy for recording non-credit data. Now, there are a number of states collaborating this and lots of voluntary and research organizations. And it is a sort of patient process. I believe there are now sort of 90 data elements in this proposed taxonomy, but it creates then a way of creating public-facing data and starting to link these data to outcomes and show sort of what's happening to these learners. And of course, this becomes an important element as education institutions want to make a case for why the public, why state government should also, of course, fund this learning. Another example of this would be the work that's being done by CredLens, which is really important work to build a national repository of data housed on credentials in a number, awarded in a number of industries, IT, health, manufacturing, and other areas, and then to be able to link that to outcome data, career progression, earnings, and other outcomes. This again gives institutions a lot of assurance about how to, whether they want to embed and how to embed this into their study programs. So the takeaway message is the federal government isn't doing much. They're not a leader, but there is a lot happening here, and it's kind of coming from the bottom up, which is a distinctive characteristic of policymaking in the United States. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tom, for helping me with the US part. I think you did a great job summarizing all the updates with us. Yeah, just gonna continue about the three dominant factors just now. It's quite important for us to see from the perspective of the student whenever we actually design our program. We need to make sure that the students are really supported. This is one of the important quality criteria that we need to have when we want to integrate these credentials. Of course, like intentional tracking, structured incentives and supports. As far as maybe advising scripts, because some guidelines for them, so they can really see what happens to them if they actually take these credentials, because some of the credentials are not really cheap for them to pay, or maybe it does involve some cost there. So in terms of faculty capacity building, so faculty is another, I would say, like if I'm from my institution with my experience, it's not easy to get the faculty buy-in. If they want to, maybe they just want to stick with their own course, if they want to integrate these credentials. So we need to make sure there is a good support for them. It's being supported by the institution. They know what to do, and also they have a clear role that if the credential comes from industry, a lot of revalidations need to be done, maintaining the quality and aligning the micro-credentials with the purpose of the university, with the program. So these are the things that it's a continuous work to get the buy-in from the faculty, who are the main part of offering the programs with these credentials. And the third part, I think quite similarly in the US, Tom has explained just now in terms of good database and good outcomes. Maybe some of the integrations I see, some of the cases, they are not clear what are the things that they need to measure. A lot of programs, maybe they just embed these industry credentials, for example, putting in Google certificates and so on. But maybe if I ask, what is the impact? How many students are actually getting job after you incorporate these industry credentials? There's no answer yet. Some of them say maybe this is like an initial plan. We just offering it. We don't have that data. So it's very important to have a strong tracking in terms of what are the elements, for example, learning outcomes, student progress data, retention, completion, certification pass rates, employer feedback, alumni feedback, and periodic review is very, very important to sustain the program. Or else maybe, it's just going to be like a pilot. A lot of cases that I look at is also they say, oh, this is just a pilot. It's not like scaling up. So to scale up, of course, you need strong all of this evidence. So then only learners trust. They put trust on the program. Oh, this program really give them good outcomes because they are approved. The previous cohorts have done it. They got jobs faster. They get, because of integrating these certificates, they can get good earnings or better earnings. So we would say like these are the things that maybe what works in order to integrate the credential to the degree pathway. So as the conclusion, so these are the recommendations. As I said, we sum up only these three main points. And adoption and scaling is not just a good quality credential, but a clear design student journey, supported faculty workflow, and shared evidence model. So, of course, there are still a lot of challenges. Maybe these are our views. When you actually are involved in it, especially from the side of higher education institutions, let us hear from you, basically. So what are you doing about these challenges?
We actually have a question for you, Hanim, which is Regis is asking, and actually it's a great question, which is how do you go about engaging with employers throughout the process of setting up alternative credential programs? What do you and others like you do as you're creating these? And yeah, tell us about that. What's that like?
Okay. Yeah, as I said, Tom, maybe our university is owned by an industry. So we have to start from
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not perfect, as I said. As I said, in Malaysia, maybe we are like slowly adopting this. It's not perfect, but at least we can start embedding the one is just, it's our parent company. So we work with our Tenaga Nasional Berhad, which is the electricity company. We start with their training programs. They also
Right.
have another institution, which is a subsidiary. They have like training programs. So they issue certificates. Some of it's considered as industry certificates because they train these our parent company's workers. But it's, yeah, so we start from there. So some of our courses, because this is especially engineering, some of our courses, we ask the students to go there and take those certificates in a way. So the students will get like some of the industry certificates from there. Yeah, so that's how we do it. Of course, as I said, now we are still looking at other examples. We also work, there's one program in our university, it's under ACCA, it's the professional body. So when they take some courses in our program, I think now this model is quite many universities doing it. They can be exempted for these professional body exams. So they are being exempted for certain papers. So that model is quite established, I guess, with certain professional bodies, but maybe the industry is still quite, there are not many adoptions, so I would say. Yeah. So maybe also it's not easy if you go straight to just any industry, uh, uh, because you need to make sure you can map whatever your courses or your programs, and also to meet the industry needs as well. So you need to map, because the way the academics thing is slightly different than the industry thing. So
So
that's my experience, Tom.
do you have like a advisory board so that you have a continuing relationship to the key people in
Yes,
your industry and you're able to talk to them on a ongoing
yes.
basis about their needs? That's for your institution.
Yeah, for I think Malaysia is like compulsory for all programs to have
Okay.
industry advisory board. But for this integration is quite new. I mean, you can use the same advisory board, but that advisory board maybe is a bit general. So
Mhm.
if this model like really integrate the industry certificate, you need another special board, I would say. Yeah, and a lot of things is you have to go to Senate to make sure everything okay. Yeah, so because in my case study, when I asked some of the universities, they said, oh yeah, these are like simple things, you don't have to go to Senate because the guideline is there. But I guess in Malaysia, that's why maybe it's a bit strict. Everything has to go to Senate. Some you have to go to accreditation board again. So yeah,
So those models will differ across, I mean, across the world they differ. The model of where do you need to go to get that approved? And in
yes,
some
yes,
cases those decisions are quite local, like at the faculty level. In other cases, there's a streamlined review process by a Senate that's lighter touch than approval of degree program, right? Is it lighter touch to get those things approved than would be a full degree program? How long does it take?
if you remember, I showed you a few models just now. If just a
Mhm.
course,
Mhm.
I would say this is not including the development. Approval may take 1 or 2 months, because it has to go to Senate. If just maybe you're offering this industry certificate just as part of your like few hours of to
Yeah.
replace few hours of your course, maybe
Mhm.
that doesn't go to Senate. Or maybe
Okay.
some program they just attach as extra things like extra, yeah, curriculum. Not they don't mess around with the curriculum, and that's fine. That maybe you don't need to go to Senate for that one. So additional certificates. But this one,
Okay.
we want to see how the integration works is more, then it will be taking more time. Things like programs like professional bodies like engineering in Malaysia, that one you cannot, it's more difficult. You have to go to accreditation body to, yeah, engineering body in order to get approval before you actually embed it in the curriculum.
So a curriculum that has a professional license,
Yes,
like
yeah,
architecture or something like that,
yes,
then
accreditation
is
and
very, very closely controlled,
or closely control. Yeah,
right? And then okay, so it requires more approval.
yeah. If you want to
Okay.
change the curriculum, yeah.
Okay. Very good. That's good to know.
And
Um,
I do have another. Thank you very much. A very, very interesting because I really think involving employers as part of this ecosystem is absolutely paramount.
yeah, yeah.
In many respects, employers could be the customers also of these systems, as
Mhm.
opposed to being the students, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
That's very interesting, and I have a similar experience back in Europe, where in the IT space, a very large IT service organization was setting up their own internal certifications, and they had such a brand, credible
Mm-hmm.
brand, that this became de facto a standard
Yeah,
for this specific profession
sure.
in the region. So there was not that extra step of
Mm-hmm.
portability to or equivalences towards degree
Mm-hmm.
system, but there was that recognition. So fascinating example. And I lost the other question I had. So never mind. Keep going.
It's okay.
Hanim,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
described a process of, I think in as I understand in Malaysia, there's quite a uh, the recognition of prior learning is
Yeah.
very much laid out at a national level, and it
Yeah.
create. How long does I'm curious? How long does it take? How long does the recognition of prior learning? If I'm a learner, and
Yeah.
I you said something like if someone works in industry for 20 years, it may be the
Yeah.
case that their learning could be recognized all the way up to the PhD level. If
Yeah.
I bring a significant uh, um, if I
Portfolio.
bring if I bring a portfolio and I want to have 2 years of academic work recognized, who does the recognizing and how long does it take?
Yeah, that's a good question because I haven't gone through that one yet as well. It's
Okay.
but as I said, there is like this Malaysian Qualifications Agency who responsible for the quality. They
Mm.
actually appoint like a center. So all universities
Uh,
there are open because you need to be the subject matter expert in that field to
okay.
evaluate. So this AppleQ is always like something, wow, we want to try that, but it depends on your area or your field. So that university, even my university, haven't applied for this, but you can be the one that actually evaluate this. So they need more people. So that is the process. You have to first maybe find which
Mhm,
institution is already like being appointed by this
mhm,
MQA to be the one that is evaluating that. And then they will check and they make recommendation. There are guidelines to do that as an accreditor. Then they will submit to a committee
mhm.
or whatever. Yeah. To tell you the truth, I'm not one of the accreditors. I don't know the
Okay.
details, but that is how it works. And there is a guideline of how to do that. Yeah,
So
it's
I'm
possible.
thinking France has one of the most developed systems of recognition of acquired competencies in the world. And it might be interesting for you. I don't know if you've looked at theirs, but I think it really could be quite interesting because I have no personal experience of it, but it's typically pointed out widely in studies as one of the most mature systems, and it may provide some interesting examples.
Yeah,
But
I
it
would say
sounds as if
Malaysia is still early. Tom, Malaysia maybe is still early in this
Mhm, mhm.
Apple field. Yeah, maybe we are also following some of the European models as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And you said also the one thing that is distinctive uh, is this idea of a credit bank.
yeah.
How does that work? How do I put credits into the bank? How do I
We
take them
haven't
out?
launched it, so but
Pardon?
something like I understand like how now I read in the US and I think all over
Mm,
the world they're moving towards this comprehensive learning records, isn't it? So
hmm.
it's something like that, but they are talking about credits instead of
I
like
see.
employment or things like that.
Hmm, hmm.
So I guess this is something that maybe I've talked to some people in Malaysia. Maybe we need to look at something like this. So for first of all, in the guideline, it hasn't been launched. It's just a draft
Okay,
at this
okay.
point, very new in Malaysia. But one of the things is for each university, you need to have your own comprehensive record of the students, and they will ask to go and there must be like a system that can actually take the data from the university. So it's
Okay.
centralized, and then after that, they also want to make it centralized at the ASEAN level as well. But I don't know how it looks like at this point.
Okay.
It's still new, Tom. Sorry.
So it would be a comprehensive learner record that would be
Something like that, I would say.
portable across the entire 11
Yeah,
ASEAN
but just
systems.
on the credits, on the academic, it's not
Okay.
it's not yet like the employment as well. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. It's easiest to start with that because it's a more manageable problem.
Yeah.
The last question for today will be, if you had one characteristic or feature of the learning ecosystem in the United States that you could take home with you to Malaysia, what would that be?
Oh wow, that's so difficult. You mean characteristic, like one term?
One policy, one feature, if there was one thing you would look
I
at and
see.
say,
I think I would say one policy is that comprehensive it's not just learning. I attended like one sessions in Brookings Institute last time. They were talking about a comprehensive learning and working employment, right? It's not just learning. I know like some universities here already have the learning records, but this one they want to do at, I don't know, national level or something. So yeah, this one I think we don't have it in Malaysia because I understand because the employment records is owned by a different ministry as well in Malaysia. So yeah, and all academics is under Ministry of Higher Education. The other one is under Human Resource. Maybe it's also here. Yeah. So how do you make sure this database or whatever is that one is something is we maybe is not being discussed in detail yet. Yeah, because I read some work. Yeah, that you already started like some standards to do that. That'd be good.
Yeah, and some states have made efforts. It's not functioning nationally, but there are certainly some states. Alabama's been quite active, and some other states have been quite sort of really pushing hard to develop some kind of comprehensive learner employment record. Okay, I think we're kind of at the end of our time. I think it's been I really enjoyed. I enjoyed working with you, learning from you, and thank you for sharing this with us. And I assume this recording will become available to all. And we look forward to following your work as you continue after your Fulbright.
Okay, thank you so much. And thank you so much to
Thank you.
NCRN. Yeah, thank you everyone and NCRN for this opportunity.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, thank you.